I demand to see the manager. Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome to another one of these. I'm joined by the pair of them. Tony's got grumpy old. Oh, you can't say that on the radio these days. And we've got Chris there looking as distinguished as ever, I must add. So I hope we're all sitting tight and we've been briefed by the press department, and we're not going to refer to Spurs as Tottenham. They've got to be known as Tottenham Hotspurs or Spurs. That's the official party line from the Wolf's Lair in Lily White House. So how are we, gentlemen? And are we recovered from the thumping good victory at Portman Road?
We are all good.
We are the Mexico judge. Mexico, your scores, please.
And we are somewhat recovered, but not overly convinced.
No, I had trouble watching the game because of technical difficulties, which have now been resolved without attracting the attention of the police. But the coat hanger's back in place for the next game. But it looked to me like going to play a game at Portman Road. It brought back a lot of strange memories. Being kettled by the police on that particular bit of pavement at one point. But did we see anything that got us really excited? I mean, we won. We won handsomely, so that can't be sniffed at. We can't completely dismiss it. We have to be pleased about that. But I noticed Ange was alleging, and I deliberately doctored his words on my Substack, for which I apologise. It was a light-hearted moment. But were the media really skewing the narrative? Or did I imagine that we were heading towards the relegation zone and we were losing loads of games and he's the worst coach we've had since Christian Gross? Did I imagine that?
I think our esteemed leader is playing the victim card, isn't he? Yeah. Big, loud and clear, isn't it? Here's my victim joker card. Whoa, thank you very much. Hello, who was responsible for the mess we were in before we had a run of 3 wins? Full stop, because it all stopped, I thought the manager was responsible for all this. Apparently not. Apparently everybody else is responsible for it. The guy just has no accountability. He doesn't think he's responsible for anything. It's delusional. It's almost messianic the way he believes in himself and the way he treats the press, everybody else with contempt, like his word is like God's law. It's just pathetic. And sorry, mate, but Son was unplayable in the first half. Yeah, I watched that game and I didn't think he was that unplayable.
No, I didn't think he was very unplayable either. I think there has been there's been a little bit of a feed in the press where virtually every week, because there's nothing particularly positive to report upon, the press have succumbed to the usual thing. Because as I say, everybody's selling is subscriptions. Everybody is selling something and they want you to be a customer. They don't want to disenfranchise people. They want you to wave you in. So it's like when we get those Sky Super Sundays, which invariably go down the pan because the teams don't show up and you don't get that box office feeling. And they've started to drip feed out the truth. And, Sonny isn't the player he was. We've covered that to death, but that's a reality. It's not an alternate universe. It's just something which isn't particularly chummy to discuss. We will discuss it on here, but the idea that the broadcasters are saying that he's, not entirely at the races. You can't have a coach sit there and tell you that black is white, and that's what he's been up to. I mean, this nonsense. I'm going to throw it in again. I did it on the short yesterday, or whatever it was. But the business with Jed Spence, I didn't make it easy for him.
So we sent him out. We sent him out to Genoa to make it as difficult as possible. We actually sent him to another European destination, and then we put a potential buy clause of 8 million in there. So we were doing everything we could to offload that bloke. Let's forget about the nonsense. We wanted rid of him, and he played him through lack of options and lack of choice. Now Jed's had one of those coming of age moments where he was the best defender in the back four for us again on Saturday. But the whole triple and nonsense, you look at management books and you look at management practices, and none of those adhere to what Ange is telling us. It's just a man talking nonsense, hoping that we believe him.
Well, Tony, I think, summed it up pretty well, making a remark about what he did to an Aborigine. He was in Australia as a joke. I had hastily, and I was disingenuous myself in that short that I did, and suggested that, you know, in a club as diverse and full of opportunity and equity and inclusion, that, you know, was he really making it awkward, putting obstacles in the way of a black player? You know, which I was being completely disingenuous because I don't buy into all that cobblers. But the reality is, you got a kid, and it felt to me, and I'm not a wokey that wanders around looking for reasons to be heard, but it felt to me that there was a bit of, well, he's a bit of a sluggish character, and he's got his dreads and all the rest of it, and he's not fitting in. He's being a bit surly, maybe. And that was Angie's big fat white man's reaction to an uppity youngster, for want of a better phrase.
The thing is, his version of history is very revisionist, isn't it? It's like if he was to ask him who won World War II, he'd probably say, "Well, I think it was a tie, mate." You know, honestly, it's just ridiculous how he just has this alternative reality that he lives in.
Well, you forget about his own historical background, and he was a migrant coming from Greek to Australia. And if you look at some of the press has done of his early life, it tells you how much of a struggle it was going to a different continent, being accepted in a new country, and all the challenges that he had to overcome. So if he's experienced that pathway himself, why is he going out of his way to make it as awkward and difficult for a young, potentially vulnerable kid who's been thrown into the lion's den? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, let's call it what it is. Ultimately, he got to a stage where he had no choice but to play Jed Spence because he was running out of players.
Yeah,
and that's the only reason why he ended up
broken all his other toys, and he discovered he discovered a tractor that he'd previously ignored because it wasn't very exciting.
It's like in his kids' film where he buries underneath. He suddenly goes, "Oh look, there's my last toy. You know, I could play with that one instead." You know.
Going back to the game on Saturday, all of the old Ange-sexuals have come out on social media, but let's put it into context. We beat a team who will be playing in the Championship next season. We beat a dog shit Man United side who their own manager have said is the worst Man United side for God knows how many years. And we scraped a 1-0 wheel away at Brentford, who had a complete off day. Yet we still find ourselves in 12th place in the league. So if Ange is this good, and if his run of form's coming together, then we're going to beat Man City easily on Wednesday night, in which case, aren't we? And it will just show us that we do have this.
I'm looking forward to.
We're only 12 by. Sorry, H. We're only 12th by dint of goal difference because Crystal Palace have got an inferior goal difference, but they've lost 4 less games than us.
Yeah,
and
that's Crystal Palace. For anybody joining us late, that's Crystal Palace, as in the Palace of Crystal. Yeah. I mean, I'm just waiting to hear what the next excuse will be, because either there's going to be like some player is accidentally decapitated in some freak accident, or we're going to have another hamstring. We're going to have something else, because if he's getting these players back and he doesn't continue his good form, and he's talking up, they're remounting a charge at the title. He's talking that up, that Spurs are back in the mix. They're coming back. That, you know, they rolled their sleeves up and they're coming out swinging. I'm not feeling it at all. I used that phrase the other week, but I'm not feeling it at all, because not every team you play is going to be as down on their luck as Brentford, United, and Ipswich Town. I mean, United's form is relegation form. We not win, and when we go back into Europe, that AZ side, they're not rubbish. You look at the prices. You look at the prices of these teams, because that's the guide. Because that way, there's no feelings involved. This is hard cash we're talking about. And AZ won't be 10-1. They won't be 7-1. All of the competitions have got increasingly tight, and we couldn't beat the first hurdle or the second hurdle, whatever it was, in the domestic cups. I've got no confidence in us. And this is the ancestral line, of course, because they've got nothing else to say. Hope. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter because we're going to win the Europa.
And that's some people talking about.
And that's the other thing as well.
Qualifying for the Champions League. Qualifying for the Champions League. Have you looked at where we are in the league, pal?
Is there a fair play place if you've been really nice to foreign visitors or something? But this is the other thing as well. I have to add here. This is another thing. I mean, because I want this show to be as educational as much as it is, risible.
Learning how to Tony.
Yeah, but and if you reoffend, there'll be more of us talking to you. But the deal is that we've got people out there who don't understand how bookmakers work. So as I said to you, the broadcasters and the newspapers, they all want subscriptions. They don't want readers, they want clicks. The bookmaker wants your money. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, and they price certain horses and certain football clubs in order to encourage a bet, which is why you see there's ridiculous things now. They're so desperate for cash. Because I remember the time when bookmakers would pay you to do things, and nowadays it's very, very tough to get a penny out of them. And they're offering 40 to 1 on games in order that you sign up and you become a consumer. So when they're saying that Spurs could win the Europa League, they don't actually mean it. They want to entice you into backing Spurs. So if you can think of it as a multiplier against your fiver of pocket money, they're not saying get on this. If they want you to not back Spurs, they'll make it prohibitive so it doesn't interest you. So they'll say Spurs are 1 to 11. You're going to have to put £11 on to get £1 back. But these angesexuals, these demented, stark raving maniacs who are wandering around talking about the sunny uplands that are awaiting us, they're deranged, absolutely deranged. And that's why Spurs are a decent price to win the thing, because they want you to lose your money. They want you to pay them.
You do. Well, there's no such thing as a bankrupt bookie, is there, at the end of the day? So
exactly.
Also, two things. I wonder what the odds are on Troy Parrott scoring against us. I would say fairly high.
Written in the stars,
isn't it? Isn't that? Would that be a irony there? Wouldn't that? That would be a filet mignon of irony. That wouldn't it? It would. That would just be so.
How's he done there? Has he been scoring? Because I get the impression that he's not been terrible.
12 goals in 23 matches,
which is unheard of because he's never done that anywhere. So he's obviously enjoying his football. He's enjoying his football and earning his money.
Yeah, so he's obviously found a place where he feels like he belongs, which is great. Great for any player. But you just know, as you said, Chris, it's written in the stars that he's going to probably tear us up. Because he'll be
motivated to tear us up.
Well, exactly. I mean, 4-1, and it was a good. We scored goals, and that was good. But there were periods in that game where Ipswich were very much, had us pinned back, and they had a goal disallowed, didn't they, to go 2-2? And it was offside. Absolutely, there's no question about that. But that these things. Okay, we won it, and so can't decry it. We won it, and we scored 4 goals, which is good. But you've got to look at those kind of tipping points in games, haven't you, as well? Like say, if it had been 2-2, okay, we don't know what the result would have been. We could have won 4-2. We just don't know. But tipping points change games. Things happen, and it changes events.
The pressure caused the ball to go in the back of the net, whether it was legitimate or otherwise, and that's the reality. It's like people, as you say, decrying own goals. Well, yes, it's not ideal that you score an own goal, but they are brought about through pressure. I mean, there's no illegal betting patterns here where the player has deliberately backheeled it into his own net. It's because the other lot have been on them and you've buckled. That's the reality. And I thought Ipswich, for what I did see of the game, I thought they looked pretty bubbly. They looked quite lively.
Got to say,
and there's no Ange ball. I've got to just throw into the mix again. There's no Ange ball. There's no discernible thing there. And I think he's changed the tactics again. I think he's had a tweak of it.
No question.
I mean, he won't. No, and this is a bizarre thing because the press don't pick up on it. They're so useless. But tactically, if you watch the way we're moving the ball around, the hallmark thing, which is still there, are these imbecilic passes sideways across the front of our own goal. That is an Ange technique.
I've got to say,
they've had drummed into them.
Watching that Ipswich side, they could have been 3 up in the first 10 minutes. Yeah. But give me that Liam Delap over Method's towel every day of the week, because the metric being my own 2 eyes. This is a kid who scored 12 goals for arguably the most powerful team in German football. But outside of that, he's not really got a CV to note. And on Saturday, I don't want to break the kid, as he may come good, but I'm just saying from what I observed, I have my worries that he won't come good. Yeah, you put that Delap in your side, he was all muscle and bustle, and he was.
He had the physique. He had the physique of like an Olympic swimmer. Yeah,
he was a man.
He had that mentality, didn't he, Chris? He had that kind of English stroke British mentality, rough them up, get in there, and get yourself, in amongst it.
Duncan Ferguson style, and
absolutely,
headed one against the crossbar. Vicario, I thought, oh God, here we go. Let's go over in the old rest, go look at his watch and give a goal, but he didn't. But the whole of that period, I watched that Mathis tell, and I didn't see anything that made me think, there's some raw potential coming out here. In fact,
I think
when Scarlett came on, Scarlett in his brief cameo created one of the goals and looked more of a handful in a brief period than he had in 75, 80 minutes of play.
I think Telly's part of a secret government program to make people invisible, because that was about as what he was on Saturday. He was invisible.
Well, I dispute that, because he did actually catch my eye in one of the statistics that no other player for either side gave the ball away so frequently. He gave the ball away more than anybody on the pitch, and for a guy who contributed nothing, or was near as damn it nothing, it's not good enough. I don't want to break the kid up either. I mean, I see people are just cheering him, and to me, they're cheering an empty box, because I don't think there's a gift in there. I don't see anything in his character. He looks a bit vacant,
Well, for someone who we've placed an awful lot of, we did an awful lot of chasing. We had literally the entire board pretty much going after this guy, and it had to take a personal intervention from Ange to persuade him to come to us. How that worked, I don't know. My God, he must have promised him getting laid or any sorts of things. He must have done so many things.
Well, he probably offered him a regular slot in the Spurs team in the Premier League, which would turn a lot of kids' heads, in fairness. I mean, the idea that Ange took 2 hours to this war of a phone call of attrition to get the kid to sign, and then we see him, and we're not. He should have said, "Oh no, sorry, not him. No, it was Danzo I was on the phone to," because the defender's been good.
But
I just don't understand.
Really good on Saturday as well. How he didn't get a penalty, I do not know to this day. As Woolfenden didn't even look to see where he was. He just shoulder barged him out from nowhere, and I can't believe that wasn't even subject to a VAR review. Tony, as a ref, what's your opinions on that?
No, I don't think it was a penalty. That's all part of the game, mate. That's all part of the game.
Okay.
I think.
Oh, we're dealing with real men now.
No, I do see. I see it, from my perspective, because obviously, it's really interesting. You get that kind of different perspectives where you've got fans and what have you, and they go like that. You've also got to remember that not every bit of contact is a foul. So from that point of view, plus also you've got to look at where the ball was. The ball was nowhere near Dan, so he wasn't getting that ball anyway. And if it was like right close to him, or on, he was on top of it, there's an argument there. But when you look at how far away the ball was from him as well, there's no chance of him actually having any opportunity to do anything with the ball. So you just kind of got to let it go.
So not Spurs related. Then what was your opinion on Ashley Young for Everton against Man United on Saturday? As I haven't
seen that. I haven't seen that, mate, if I'm honest. Right. So, but I'm judging by. I will have a look at it actually later on, and I'll chuck it in the chat. But I've heard lots about it, but I haven't actually seen it, so I can't comment.
A refreshing thing going back to Saturday, it was nice to see the love child Pedro Porro finally benched, and Spence deployed at right back with a doggy on the left side, because I thought
didn't Spence do it again every game he does himself justice. He's an attack. He's attack minded, but he can also defend.
But he's a bit of a unit. He's a bit of a unit as well. He's not thick set, but he's got some height, and he's got that dynamic explosion of pace, and every time he gets it, he's looking to go forward, and that's what we've lacked. When you think back to the golden days, the great days of having Danny Rose on the left and Carl Walker on the right, and our attacks used to just fly down those flanks. But we've tried so many combinations. Your Serge Aurier's, who was alongside Basuma, smoking something in the opposition dressing room. You've had your Kieran Trippier's. You haven't had the players with that ability. And you look at Spence and you think, finally, it may have come good.
Yeah, I think the world of the kid, to be honest with you, and I fully I'm in love with the idea that he has had this coming of age moment where he's decided to grow up. You know, he's like one of these kids who stopped getting nicked for stupid things like stealing sweets or doing a bit of vandalism or whatever, and has decided to go to college, decided to learn to drive, decided to. He just looks an improved.
Yeah.
But he just looks improved. He looks to me like almost like somebody, you know, going back to the sort of that's just part of the game sort of thing. Looks like somebody's dad sat him down and said to him, "Listen, mate, you're heading one way at the moment." And you contrast that. There was a video clip that I had on this channel, I think, at one stage, and it was him talking after he'd been in that cup final with Forest, and he was talking like a bit of a dropout. And you could understand how somebody would get the impression of him and thinking, well, this is just some idiot with a Rasta haircut and a bit of a time waster. And he just looked like a sort of, yeah, man. But now you look at him and we saw like the business where at Bournemouth away, where the fans were at him. And he was the only guy who stood by his coach and was doing the, you know, leave it, Terry routine. So I think it's great, and I can only wish him well. I think he's going to have a great career with Spurs as much as he can, and I think there's going to be a lot of interest in him, because he's one of those rare things where a lot of people at one stage were saying he's going to come good, and now he has.
Do you know what I'd be interested to see? When he was at Nottingham Forest, he played on the right side. Who played in front of him? Brennan Johnson. So when they were both at Nottingham Forest, is where we scouted the pair. And they were reasonably good collectively there. So I don't know if he starts at games on a regular basis and plays with Johnson regularly, if they can get that DNA back, and if he can coax and bring Johnson out of himself a little bit. Because he chipped in with a couple of goals at the weekend. The second one I thought was a nice approach play, and I thought he just swept it home very nicely. So again, we've not been critical. We've been honest around the abilities of Brennan Johnson. None of us hate him. We just have questions about his ability and his mindset, but we would love to see him push on, and if he could do that because he's got something together with an ex-teammate, it's only going to benefit us as a club.
No, absolutely. I mean, Johnson's issue, or rather the issue I have with Johnson, is I just feel a bit shortchanged. He wasn't cheap, and I'd like more consistency, and he's a professional athlete. Let's get on with it, you know. Because he didn't come from a different league. He came from a side which is still having success. And dare I say it, you would say it, wouldn't you? But is he being coached? I mean, nobody else is. So I find it very difficult to believe anything that's happening to these guys isn't something that's organically happening because of who they are. And again, going back to that character. And I think that, you know, less wishy-washy and more, you know, let's see some oomph, if it wouldn't disturb anybody. And Spencer's brought oomph to the party in by the truckload. I thought hopefully something can come of that.
I thought Doggy looked solid on Saturday as well. He didn't have any of his usual brain farts. He didn't. It looks like the wingers, the fullbacks, are less inverted at the moment. And it looks like the recklessness that we saw in recent games has been done away with. And there weren't a lot of times in that game that you saw the fullbacks absolutely flying forward. Now it seems damn so to do that. Yeah,
I think the
high line has collapsed entirely. And I think he's broken all his toys, so he's going to pull this one out. He's found under the back of his bed. And beneath his bed, this is Ange, who is faced with so few options because he has had his face mercilessly rubbed in the dirt of losing. Spurs have, generally speaking, lost. Christian Gross is the manager they're comparing him to, and it's not out of some weird voices you're hearing in your head. These are the results. This is what he's delivered. So he's had no alternative but to dump the high line and to adapt. And as you say, I think we're seeing less of the inverted wingers, inverted fullbacks, and we're seeing less of the everybody charge Tora, because it hasn't bloody worked.
Well, I think it's more to do with, I think when you look at Spence and you look at the change in formation, because there's been a definite change in formation and the way we play. I think a lot of that is in spite of Ange rather than because of him. Because he's been faced with no other options. He's been faced with, I've got to play Spence because we don't have anybody else on the team we can play, and he's had to play the a different formation because again he's broken everybody, and there isn't enough players who could, even if he did try and play a high line, it'd probably break even more, and we'd probably have a squad of about 9. So for me, this is not design. This is accident.
Absolutely. It's chance as much as anything. It's good fortune, and he's needed some good fortune, and it's not going to come from him.
Another that stood out on Saturday for having a reasonable game for me was Bergvall. I thought you put an experienced old head in alongside him. You've got something there. We started off the season saying, nah, he's not up to it. Then he came in and had 6 or 7 games on the run. We thought, actually, there's something about him. But now you see him pushing on, and he wants the ball, and he's comfortable with the ball, and he can beat players, and he can pass in tight pockets of space. So again, when we move forward, the sensible thing to do is to go out and get that genuine star for the now, who, I don't know, 27, 28-year-old, who can guide him through the next couple of seasons, as there's undoubtedly a talent in that lad.
I think he's good stuff. He's definitely young, and he has an element of naivety that youth brings to people. But and again, I have to bring it back because this isn't something I'm inventing. A lot of the concerns that fans quite rightly have are because of Ange. He doesn't coach, and when he does have an idea, it isn't a very good one. I'll tell you now, he's like one of the biggest obstacles that this club has faced in recent years. Because when we've had situations with previous coaches, they have absolutely gone out of their way to try and adapt, and it's normally caused absolute carnage amongst the supporters because the football you got wasn't particularly charming. So the Conte and Mourinho period, that didn't work because what the coaches were doing was making the best of the resources that they had using a proven formula. But this guy has a formula that doesn't work at this level. So you beat Ipswich 4-1 and everybody's whooping.
I looked at the Napoli side that lost yesterday under Conte, and I was absolutely amazed to find that Philip Billing, the central midfielder who used to play for Bournemouth, is now was playing for Napoli yesterday. I thought, how on earth has that happened? It's like that Eric Choupo-Moting who played at Stoke, but clearly had the greatest agent in the world who engineered moves to, and he ended up at Bayern Munich, didn't he? Having won a Champions League or something. It was absolutely ridiculous.
How old was that Stoke player? 52.
I don't know, but I think, my opinion is that if Ange doesn't win the Europa League, he shouldn't be here next season. And even if he does win the Europa League this season, does that buy him sufficient credit? In my opinion, not. But you know how our Happy Clappers fan base will recalibrate and say we're starting the new project again and watch us cook next season.
Well, it's funny that
a radiator.
Look at how long. I know. There's a big difference in the quality of the squads, so it's not necessarily a fair comparison. But I still say it's valid. When you look at what Slot has done at Liverpool already, he's taken a team that was not on a downward trend, but certainly wasn't playing very well. Last season under Klopp, they didn't really perform very well at all, and he's just turned them into an absolutely cohesive unit. I mean, I know it's only Man City, and we've got Man City in Wednesday, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But that game yesterday was about as dominant. We won 4-0, but I don't think we necessarily dominated it. I know it sounds really weird when you say you won 4-0, but we didn't necessarily dominate it as much as Liverpool dominated that game yesterday. And the way he's managed to turn them into that cohesive unit that every player looks the part wherever they are.
Two things from that, Tony. First thing, he's not made a single signing. Any players that he signed have yet to arrive, like the new goalkeeper, the long-term replacement for Becker, comes in the summer. But how refreshing yesterday, their first goal, a set piece from a corner.
Wasn't that brilliant?
Coaching on the training pitch Monday to Friday, and everybody knew what they were doing, and it worked so superbly. When was the last time we not only beat the first man from a corner, but actually scored from a corner?
But you see, Chris, you're going into that territory again. You're mentioning the C word, and that's not allowed. That's not allowed. It's coaching, not allowed.
The obscenity of the C word is ever looming over Postecoglou. Just looking at the betting for Manchester City versus Spurs, or Tottenham versus Spurs as it actually is. City are into 10 to 11, which is close to even money, and Spurs are 12 to 5. So the bookmakers don't think there's going to be a rout again. And just to look at AZ Alkmaar, for those interested, and then we've got virtually this same thing. They are, so this is interesting. Spurs at 11 to 10, so again close to even money, but AZ 2 to 1, 2.5 to 1, generally speaking, across the board. So we've never played anybody in the Europa League at such a short price. I think the shortest opponent we had was 5 or 6 to 1 in those early games. So they're going to be very different games. The next Europa game and the next Premier League game are going to be very different gravy to what we got at Portman Road. So I would say to the little munchkins out there and the incels, buckle up, because you're not going to be having this crowing over beating Dross. I just find very peculiar. It's great we won. Nobody's taking anything away from it, but you have to accept it for what it was. And as Chris said, they're going to be playing in the Championship next season.
Well, if you look at the next 4 games, City, Bournemouth, Fulham, Chelsea.
Bournemouth are right up there in the league, unless
Absolutely.
The league table is conspiring to tell lies.
And the thing is with that, you think about that. That's obviously there's 12 points there. What would be what would considered be a good turnout for that? So if you're looking at that, City, obviously they're in an absolute bloody mess at the moment, but it's not beneath them to suddenly turn in a performance.
No.
Bournemouth, I think Bournemouth will be really tricky. And they beat us. They've beaten us away regularly for the last couple of seasons, haven't they?
Most people beat us, Tony. What are you talking about?
I was going to say,
I know it's heinous word. It's the B word now. It's not the C word. It's the B word.
Not only did they beat us, but our own fans aided them. Giving Ange diet tips.
Fulham away is never tends to be not great for us. And then we've got the blue races.
Difficult
Chelsea.
place to come, mate. Yeah.
So for me, if we were to get 6 points out of that wouldn't necessarily. I don't think that's a decent return, but that's about as much as I expect.
Right. We need 7 points to the magical 40-point mark, don't we, to guarantee Premiership football next season. We are just fortunate that there are 3 such dog shit teams beneath us this season, because any other year you could get caught with us down.
Well, let's be realistic. That's the. It's like these last 3 games. Yeah, Brentford are hot and cold, but they're still above us ultimately. But Man United, that was a game of which team was going to be the least shitty, and it ended up being us. And then yesterday,
that was the Man United game.
And on Saturday, we beat a team that's is now compared to when they played us and beat us at home. They were just outside the relegation zone at the time, if I remember rightly. They're now firmly ensconced in the relegation zone, and they're on their way down. There's no question about that.
Just go put this out there before to alleviate the happy clappers. So the team that started against us on Saturday, Alex Palmer, goalkeeper, 2 games in the Premiership, was playing at West Brom, 28 years of age. Leif Davis at right back. He previously played for Villa, I think, many years ago. Jacob Bruce centre back last season was playing at Hull. O'Shea centre back last season was at West Brom. Ben Godfrey last season at Norwich went out to the Italian club, got loaned back. Central midfield, Phillips, who Man City have loaned to every man and his dog, and he's found out home at no club. A guy called Kajus, a Swedish guy on loan. In front of them, Philogene, who was at Hull last season, signed for Villa, couldn't get anywhere near their team, was lent out for the rest of the season. Omari Hutchinson in midfield, sold to Ipswich from Chelsea, alongside that footballing icon, that generational talent, that one that all gave us a semi, Jack Clarke. who came from Leeds. We were told he was going to make us smile every day of the week. Ended up going to Sunderland. And then up front, the lad Delap. So we are winning 4-1 with a squad worth about 400 million against predominantly a team of championship players.
worth a carrier bag of £5 notes.
Yeah, yes, we are cooking.
Yeah, we're cooking, baby. The radiator is turned up to the 2 on the dial, and we're beginning to sweat.
Your radiator's not turned up. You can't even work it.
Doesn't need it. It's got stuff. Remember that.
Yeah, that's right, baby. Yeah, the only man in Europe who can't switch his oven or his heating on at the moment, because I haven't downloaded the QR code and got into the instructions.
You obviously live a fair distance from the tanning shop, as you've returned to normality now.
I tell you, I think part of the problem was is that the I'm going to work out where I have to rejig the desk in here, but I was sat against a window when we recorded. The time of day was that it was very sunny, so I looked a bit more kind of like I was about to have a stroke and keel over. But yeah. But anyway, yeah, Wi-Fi heating. That's fantastic. What an invention! That'll keep the bills down. I might be able to just sail through.
Puberty.
Brought to you by Ange Vision, because they all look like TVs as well. I walk into a room and think, oh, it's a telly. No, I don't want to watch anything, but it's not. It's a heating, and they're about that thick. The radiators as well. Just nuts. But anyway, so Manchester City, I think we could be in for a bit of a spook with them. I find it too predictable. And this business, like I say, the bookmakers aren't reflecting the "here come Tottenham, lock up your daughters" vibe at all.
What are you
and
talking about?
we're at home, for goodness sakes.
You old cynic. We've won 3 in a row. We've got a manager who's contender for February Manager of the Month. You just don't realise how lucky you are.
Or will he be Miss March? Miss March, you're full. Mr. Centerfold himself. No, like I say, I'm just not feeling it, because the reality is that the teams that we've picked points up from haven't been very good with us and with other opponents.
The reality is,
if we were beating,
that's the reality. We're in 12th place. Yeah. That's the reality.
And we're suddenly playing a team that are half the price they were. Sorry, are half the price that our previous opponents in the Europa League have been. You don't ignore that. I mean, that's like going to a shop and saying that bread's cheap. I wonder if it's all right. Well, it's probably not if it's half the price of every other sliced pan on the shelf, and that's what we're dealing with. So the prices of City and of AZ are not as favourable as everybody else that we've played. I can't remember what Ipswich were, but it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that anybody was half decent, and we are half decent, and only, well, look where we are on the table. We're virtually halfway down the pegging order. A half decent team were always going to be Ipswich. But yeah, it's very. We'll see. Maybe the Ange sexuals will be hot on our heels when we're putting the 5th goal past City. But as I say, I simply don't feel it at all.
If you get in the next 4 games, so you've got City, then home to Bournemouth, then away to Fulham, then away to Chelsea. Those 2 home games, we've got to win those. It's that simple. We've just got to win them. We've got no choice. I say we've got no choice. Obviously, we have a choice. We can always certainly choose to lose them. But we have to win those 2 games, because I don't see us getting a result at Fulham, and I certainly don't see us getting a result at Chelsea, even though Chelsea are pretty bloody awful at the moment as well. But, it's us. They always turn up for us. So, I just don't see it.
The Battle of the Bridge.
Yeah,
the Battle of the Bridge.
Yeah,
handbags at dawn.
The only problem with the Battle of the Bridge was we didn't win. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved that. I loved all that. Getting in there and giving them a good old thumping. I was well up for that, but we still didn't win. So
no. That's the narrative. That's the narrative. I mean, this is the business where Ange would start winding up, these routines of, it's a difficult place to come and blah blah blah. Nobody cares. It's a results-driven business, and you're in 12th, mate.
It's no. You don't get points for winning the moral high ground. It's that simple. And just because we might have had a bit of a performance from the lads on that night, where they got in amongst everybody and decided they were going to start dishing it out, which I was very happy about. Not saying I wasn't unhappy about it, but we still didn't win.
I think we're going to be back to that business where he's like that in the press conferences. He's asking the questions. He looked absolutely possessed the last few presses he's done when because he feels the heat. He's feeling the heat.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously a happy bunny right now, because obviously they won 4-1, which is why he was coming out with this overt, I can only describe as delusional nonsense about Sonny being unplayable. I mean, I'm sorry, fella. You definitely aren't watching the same game that I was watching, and 90% of the of the supporters were watching, because there was no way he was that good. If he was that, and even if he was that good, it's Ipswich. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Do that against Man City. Yeah, then colour me impressed. Apart from that, no, thank you.
I think there's a degree with Ange as well, because he's had this rammed down his throat. He will see all the Korean interest. He will see all the Korean VIPs. He will see the money that they're worth, and the sort of the inherent status of the player. But the player isn't delivering.
Forget, I can assure you.
He's certainly been at the baguettes.
Yeah, he's
they're sugary. They're sugary.
Yeah,
he's the buffet boy for the baguette company. But I think he's been fed so much on this, it's starting to come out of his mouth. And this business of him being unplayable. No coach worth their salt would say that was an unplayable performance. And if it was an unplayable performance, you'd say it was against bloody Ipswich.
But how can he repeat that feat against Tamworth in the FA Cup then? Explain that one to me.
Yeah, that's also another thing. It was only, according to Ad, he said he was unplayable in the first half. Well, then what happened in the second half?
Yeah. Did he lose his boots or something?
Yeah. Did he suddenly decide he didn't want to be unplayable anymore? I thought he'd give him a go, give him a chance.
Yeah. He thought he'd turn it down a bit and try and create more of a spectacle. Just ridiculous. But the reality is, Chris said there, the reason he didn't show up in the second half is because he would have felt, because he's a professional footballer, he would have felt that the game was in the bag, and he would have also been tired because he's one of the oldest players on the park. It's as simple as that. But the stuff we're pointing out will be seen by some as being nitpicky and negative, but it's reality.
People don't like honesty.
Reality.
They don't like the facts, and they don't like feedback. They like to create this dream, and in this dream, everything flows the way they want it to. Yeah. Well, I think, as we've said, I think we're in for a bumpy couple of weeks now. Let's talk about our esteemed leader. When we look at the last 16 of the Europa League Conference ping pong table championship, whatever it is, so we've got AZ Alkmaar. Then you've got Ajax Frankfurt. The winner of those would face us in the quarterfinal. And on the other side of our same group, you've got Bodo Glimt. I think they're a Norwegian team. Olympiakos, the Greek crooks laundering all their money under their mattresses. And then you've got Victoria Pleasant,
the Sheringham Seahawks
against Lazio. So there are no standout names there.
Melbourne Raw.
There are no standout names there that you should be fearful of, and the expectation is
Raw spelled R-A-W. It's uncut, kids. It's uncut. But no, I mean, this is the point. I mean, the Europa League. I'm going to be careful with my words here. You can't dismiss winning anything. That's a dangerous path to take. But don't tell me. It's like his CV. This is the reality. Who did he win when he was, there's Asian Cup or whatever it was, where the might of North Korea were in the final or whatever it was. It's just a Mickey Mouse operation.
You've overlooked the accolades of Brisbane Roar. How dare you? I thought you knew about.
Sorry, I sneezed and their CV sort of just flashed.
All right,
but But this is the reality. We joke about this, but his CV is built upon getting past dross. Because it's like all these bloody Scottish football fans we had telling us, instructing us, luring us into this fantasy that this guy was mustard. And you're like, yeah, well, apart from them and Rangers, there's nobody else in that league. You start going to Cowden Beath and there's 4,500 people watching the game. You cannot take the results of those games seriously. You just cannot indulge them. Well, you're a racist. You're a bigot. You're
one of the red flags for me was how long it took Ange to get his professional coaching qualifications. As Celtic had to get an exemption because he hadn't got them. So, yeah, that was always a red flag that they'd got somebody who was coaching.
He didn't
have the requirements.
He got his badges from Temu.
Yeah, live like a billionaire, baby.
Yeah, but just absolutely crazy. So I think this is what we're seeing. We're seeing exactly what we thought we were going to see. We're going to see a guy who has been the king of the 2 bob tournaments. If he wins the Europa League, it's going to be on the books. It's going to be something we did. It was a victory. We won. Blah blah blah, and I'll be very happy. But you've got to look at what the quality of the opposition is like. And we're supposed to be, I mean, this is one of the problems Manchester United are up against at the moment. Losing money left, right and centre, which is why Ratcliffe's wandering around, removing items from the menus and sacking old retainers and this, that and the other, because they're playing in the wrong part of Europe. They're a Champions League. That's the business model, is being in the Champions League. And that's where Levy land is firmly rooted. And that's why we've dropped in the Deloitte Money League, because we're playing against muck opposed to the creme de la creme. You're
mute, Tone.
You've muted yourself, you lunatic.
Yeah, I muted myself. I was coughing, having a coughing fit. I reckon that when they were doing their due diligence and looking at Ange, after he'd been turned down by 8 other people, they
due diligence. That's funny. Tell us another one, Dad. That's funny.
I reckon he must have put on his CV, won the Champions League, Football Manager 2025 or something like that. And they go, oh, that sounds good. He knows what he's doing then.
In crayon.
No, when we went to
that's quaint, a handwritten CV. I haven't seen one of those for a few years.
No, when we went to Portugal to get Bruno Fernandes and ended up arriving back with Edson Fernandes.
Oh, who could forget that?
Well, yeah. I think Levy went overseas with the intention of getting Tony Angelino and came back with Amam.
Is that Tony Angelino, who of the quaying fame?
Yeah.
Well, the wing was at home.
Yeah.
I mean that's where we are. I mean, you see, the problem is as well with all these Ange sexuals and apologists. While they're talking, they're not looking at the league table. I don't want to see us in 12th. I don't want to see us there at all. But you see that if you look at the players we're being linked with at the moment, there's a lot of kids still. There's a lot of kids. I mean, this is a danger
of buying anybody. We just want to get all those happy clappers and excitable thinking. Oh God, we're going to be ambitious next season. Things are going to change. Latest project. Let's go out and renew our season tickets. Absolute toss.
Well, but this is a dangerous game, because if there isn't something there that's done to actively sustain the business model, and everybody goes, oh, Levy's a great businessman. You've hired a coach that isn't going to win anything, but this time you're going to be skirting around the mid part of the table. The revenue is going to be slashed because you're not earning decent money, because you're not playing decent sides in Europe. That's a very dangerous thing. It's all well and good, and without being demeaning to anybody, but if you're a West Brom or you're a Burnley or whatever, the object of the exercise is not to get relegated. So every season that you stay up, you've got that foothold on the sort of money waterfall. But to be dropping down the table, and again we come back to it, Spurs are in the same boat as Manchester United, shadow of what they want to be, and you're not earning the bloody money.
Someone did a really good analysis. I was going through some Facebook page or something in preparation. I know Facebook isn't necessarily preparation, but it's interesting to get the views of people and see what some. There was some good stuff. There was some reality actually there, rather than all this, hey, we've won 3 games in a row, we're going to win the Champions League. It was saying that Champions League is out of it. We're not qualifying for the Champions League. Just forget that. We would have to win. We've got something like 10 out of 12 games, and so many other teams would have to lose.
Precisely. Not only would our form have to go through the roof, but other people would have to be virtually hospitalised to allow that. Yeah.
And they're basically, and the kind of end message was, the best we can possibly expect is either to win the Europa League or qualify for the Europa League. And even then, that's still going to ask an awful lot of the other teams to basically give it to us rather than us take it from them. And I just thought that was a real big dose of reality. You've got to look at where we are and how many points we've got. We've got 33 points. And that, just in its own thing, it's a long way off what you would normally expect to be in order to be qualifying for A, the Champions League, or B, the Europa League, even the Ropey Conference. And I'm not being funny, is if we don't win the Europa League, and I obviously hope we do, but if we don't, are we really saying that this was a good season by winning nothing and getting into the Ropey League again? Is that really a sign of progress? No,
it's treading water. It's treading water, and it's becoming, as I say, and I can't emphasize enough, it's a dangerous thing for a big operation like Spurs to have £1 billion stadium and to be skirting relegation and picking up points as we have done for numerous seasons by beating Dross.
Well, look at the shit state Man United are in. Yeah, Ten Hag won them the FA Cup and the League Cup in consecutive seasons. Yeah, they decided he wasn't the man and pulled the trigger on him. Yeah, had he done that at Tottenham, he'd have probably been the most successful manager since Bill Nicholson because of the complete.
Certainly would have given. He would have certainly given Keith Birkinshaw a run for his money. That's for certain. But you see, this again is fans' skew-eyed view of the world, where you've got again Ten Hag and you've got Jose Mourinho, the guy that everybody hates, did an amazing job. When he was at Manchester United, because he brought them silverware. Nobody cares about all the other stuff and how hurt you are and how rough and nasty and unshaven he is. Nobody cares about all that. He brought them silverware and they didn't like it. They didn't like that silverware. They didn't mind anything under Sir Alex, and they didn't mind anybody else winning them cups, but the cups that he'd won them, he didn't really like them. It's not what we do. And they were up against him virtually from the day that he walked into the job. And we're now at a point where we're mimicking that we didn't like those men either, and we're happier with this chubby funster who is a pretty rough human being when it comes down to when he speaks to people. You're only seconds away from him basically telling you that he hates you, and he doesn't want your opinion and he doesn't want your involvement, and it's his way or the highway. And his way is being, as he was at Celtic and all the other places he was, the king of the shit heap. Look at me. Aren't I a big man? Well, you're not. You're actually a coward.
Well,
that's the reality.
I think that's a really good. Because I was going to ask you a question. I think this is a great time to do that based on what you just said. If you're Archie Gray and Romero and Van der Ven are coming back, what are you thinking?
I would hope that I'm going to get my opportunity in midfield, but you're actually thinking I'm going to be sat on the bench from this point forward.
And that bloke deserves to be treated better. I think that's exactly what will happen. And I think, given the service he's given to us already and the things he has done, considering his age, if he doesn't put him in, once that back line is re-established again, because it will be, then he deserves to go in his proper place, and get rid. Spence can go. That's fine. You could just stick him in instead of Spence. That's not a problem at all, because he's twice the player that Spence is at the moment anyway. But that's not what's going to happen, is it?
If he removes Danso for returning Romero, then he needs his head looking at, and we should be writing, because Danso's been brilliant. Romero doesn't want to be here. His mind's elsewhere. He's not a great player anyway. Let him
Danso doesn't mind going forward, does he? He doesn't mind getting the ball and actually going forward.
He's deceptively quick as well.
Yeah. Whereas Romero just sits on the ball, sort of like puts his foot on the ball for like 5 minutes, has a look round, strolls around, and then
can't see his mate Lo Celso. Feels a bit depressed. But the trouble is with Romero is that he was only good, and this is not particularly controversial, but he was only good when he was on the verge of giving a red card, of getting a red card. When he had that real, my God, this is a serial killer sort of thing about him, which obviously common sense kind of ironed it away from him, and he calmed down. But he was very lively when we first got him, and he's lost that liveliness, and instead we're getting this kind of nonchalant foot on the ball thing and stupid little small tip-tappy passes. I mean, I remember at school being coached by a bloody PE teacher, you know, not by a proper football manager. And the idea that you pass the ball diagonally in front of your own goal was verboten. No way, don't do it. Not even under any circumstances. It was the one thing you don't do.
Kick the ball out if you're not if you haven't got to play, if you're on the wing and you haven't got to pass up the wing, you either pass it back to the keeper who can then launch it out if you can do that safely. Yeah. Or you just hoof it. You just hoof it up.
But the amount of times but the amount of times we've had heart attacks with these hospital passes that Ange has instilled into them. This build it out from the back. It's like following a manual, despite the fact it doesn't work.
But I bet you
all the time.
But I bet you he'll bench Archie Gray when they come back.
100%. You just know he will.
I am a manager and I make tough decisions.
Actually, he'll play him at goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Rush goalie.
Yeah. Actually,
right, gentlemen, I think. Go on, sorry.
Go on, mate. That's all right, mate.
No, I was just going to wrap up because we've sort of hit the hour point, which is always.
Well, I was just going to say you might make him a goalpost, but you know that's just another thought. Because he's played everywhere else on the pitch, hasn't he?
You can't put people in white sheets. It's not that time in society anymore.
Where you going with this one?
Hey, thank you. Right. Well, listen, we've hit the point where we've revealed who we are politically. So it's good night from me and it's good night from them. Thanks very much for joining us. Hit like if you liked it. If you want to get more, hit subscribe.
Before we go, predictions for Man City.
I think we'll lose by 1 goal.
Tony.
I'm going to be optimistic and go 2-2.
A Desmond.
I am going to go 3-1 to Tottenham.
Well, hark at her.
Have you put money on that?
In here.
Have you put money on that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be like the vicar of Dibley. Yeah. No.
And you two are like that. Sat on the balcony in the Muppets.
I thought it was terrible. Never enjoyed myself so much. Right, that's it for now. Good luck and keep it on. There we go.
Is the recording on?
This up. It is now.